In this video, we're going to have a look at a couple of level 3 algebra questions where we are required to find the area under a curve. In this particular question, we're being given a speed time graph for a point P that moves on a computer screen. We're being asked to use the trapezium rule to find an estimate of the area of the region under the curve and between 0 and 1.0 and the time axis, and this is the time axis here. And we're being asked to use 5 strips of equal width. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to actually write down the trapezium rule. Now the version of the trapezium rule that I like to use is this one here. So we've got the area is equal to a half times the height, and then I'm going to have my endpoints, and then I'm going to add on 2 times my middle points. Okay, so that there is the trapezium rule that I'm going to use. Okay, so we are being told that we want to split it into 5 strips of equal width. So I'm going to start by doing that, and I know that I'm going to go from 0 to 1. Okay, so each of my strips are going to have a width of 0.2, and that will split it into 5 equal strips. Okay, so I'm just going to draw those in now. So one at 0.2, one at 0.4, one at 0.6, one at 0.8, and then one here at 1.0. Okay, and you'll see here that each strip has a width of 0.2. Okay, so in my formula, that is going to be what h is. H is the 0.2. It's the width of each of the strips. Okay, so what I'm now going to do is I'm going to just label up at the top here what the y coordinate, or what the speed is going to be at each of those times. Okay, so for that first one, I make that, oh sorry, the first one is here. Let's be careful because we're going from 0 to 1. So the first one here is just going to be 0. That's going to be my first endpoint. And then the second point over here is going to be, and if I read that off, that gives me 5. We need to be really careful when we're reading these off, by the way. The next one over here, so I'm going to read that off, and I make that 8.4, 8.8. This one here is nice and simple, that's 10. This one here is again going to be 8.8, and we can see there's symmetry here now, and this last one here is also going to be 5. Okay, I'm now going to substitute these values into this equation over here. So my area is equal to a half times h, and h we decided is going to be 0.2, that's going to be the width of every strip, multiplied by the ends. So the end values, I've got 0 and 5, those are my end values, so I'm going to have 0 plus 5 as my ends, plus 2 times my mids. Okay, and the rest of these are all going to be my mids. So I've got 5 plus 8.8 plus 10 plus 8.8. I can close my brackets there. Okay, so now I'm going to work this out here. So a half of 0.2 is just going to be 0.1, so 0.1 there. And I've still got my brackets here. I've got 0 plus 5, which is 5, plus 2 times, and then I want to add together my mids here. Okay, so you might want to write these down and calculate them, but we'll do it quickly. So 8 and 8, 16, 17.6. Okay, and I make that 33.2. Okay, and that's going to give me 0.1 times, and then I've got 5 plus 2 times 33.2, so that's going to be 66.4, add 5 gives me 71.4. Okay, be really careful with your calculations here. Remember, you don't have a calculator and you don't want to lose any marks just with some numeracy calculations here. So make sure you're writing these down and you're calculating them in a way that you feel comfortable. So finally we've got area is equal to 0.1 times 71.4, which is just going to be 7.14. Okay, so my answer for this is going to be 7.14. So I'm just going to write my answer over here. Okay, and then that gives me 3 marks. Okay, so remember we need to use a formula here, and then we'll get 1 mark for working out what all the heights are, another mark for substituting it into the formula, and then we would get another mark for working it out correctly. Okay, so part B over here is now saying, well, what does this area represent? Okay, so we need to know what the area represents. Because it's a speed time graph, the area underneath the curve represents the distance travelled. Okay, so all we need to know, all we need to say, sorry, here is the distance. Distance travelled, or the distance moved in this case. It's something moving on a screen. Okay, so distance moved, that is enough information. Okay, the final part of this question says, for what value of t is the acceleration of p 0? So remember, the acceleration is given by the gradient, and for it to be 0, when a gradient is 0, when we have a horizontal line. So I'm looking back over here and I'm looking to see at what point when I draw the tangent to the curve, am I going to get a horizontal line? And hopefully you can spot that that's going to happen at this point here. Okay, at this point here, the tangent is going to be horizontal. Okay, and that's going to happen after 0.6 seconds. Okay, at 0.6 seconds, we're going to have a tangent that's going to be horizontal, and therefore the acceleration is going to be 0. So over here, for my final part, I'm just going to say t is equal to 0.6 seconds. Okay, there you go. I hope you found that part of it useful. We're now going to have a look at a different question. Okay, in this question we've got the graph of y is equal to 3 by x for values of x from 1 to 6. We're being asked to use the trapezium rule to find the area of the region under the curve where y is equal to 3 by 6 and between x equals 1, y equals 0 and x equals 6. Okay, so we're essentially looking for the area underneath the curve between this section here of the graph. And we're going to use 5 strips of equal width. So once again, I'm going to start by writing down the trapezium rule. Okay, so the trapezium rule we know is A is equal to, like I did before, half h, and then we're going to have our ends plus 2 times our mids. Okay, and we want to split this up into 5 strips of equal width. So that's what I'm going to do here now. I'm going to split this up into 5 equal strips. So we're going to start at 1 and we're going to go to 6. So we're going to have, each strip is going to have a width of 1, I think. Okay, so I'm going to draw my strips in. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. Okay, there we go. Yeah, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 strips. Okay, again, I'm not going to bother drawing in the trapezia here because it's not really necessary for this question. But I can do, if I wanted to work out them individually, I could draw those in as well. Okay, what we're going to do, again, like we did before, we're just going to label at the top here the y coordinate for each one. So this has a value of 3, I can see. This one over here is going to have a value of 1.5. This here is going to have a value of 1. The number is a little bit nicer this time. This is 0.75. this here is going to be, that looks like 0.6, and this here is going to have a value of 0.5. Okay, so I'm now going to substitute these values in like I did before. I'm just going to label this up. So this is my width here, my value of h, which is going to be 1. Okay, let's put these values in then. So area is equal to a half of 1, which is just a half, but we can come to that later. The n, so these are going to be the n, so I've got 3 plus 0.5 plus 2 times the mids. So the mids are going to be these ones here, so I've got 1.5 plus 1 plus 0.75 plus 0.6. And then I can close that square bracket. I always recommend you write all of this down because you will get a mark for just using the formula correctly. If you start just working these out as you go, then you, if you make an error, then you just won't get any marks at all. So please do write it down. Okay, so let's simplify this a little bit. So a half of 1 is just a half. Open my square brackets. I've got 3 and 0.5, which is 3.5, plus 2 times, and then I'm going to add these together. So that's going to be 2.5, 3.25, 3.85. Always be super careful when you're doing those calculations. I would recommend writing it down and just making double sure that you've got it right. Okay, so let's go a little bit further. So we've got a half of, we've got 3.5 plus, and then I want to double 3.85, which is going to be 7.7. So that's going to give me, I'm just going off the screen here a little bit, speed that up. A half of, if I add those two together, so 3.5 add 7.7 is going to give me 11.2. And then I just want to do a half of 11.2, and that's going to give me 5.6. Okay, and that there is going to be my answer. The area is going to be 5.6. Okay, so I can just put that on my answer line over here. Okay, I hope you found that video useful. Take care, and I see you next time.